Hi, my name's Marlon, and I'm here to tell you about this epic camera right here, the Sony A9 Mark III. I'm going to share 15, I think, features with you that stand out to me on this camera that I use whenever I go into the field to be fast, to be effective, and to just make my life easier. This is the camera we've been waiting for, let's be honest, okay? But it's very customizable. It's quite complicated to set up, what can be. And although you might think, this is a lot, so many things to change and so many custom functions to set. Well, it's not. Once you've done this and you built that muscle memory, it's so much about memory, getting used to it, using it over and over again. Once you get used to it, the way I set my camera up, I believe it's going to make life a little bit easier for you and make you more effective when you get into the field. Without taking too much of your time, let's jump straight in and I'll share the features with you that to me make this camera very usable and make it very good when I'm in the field. Let's go.
I'm Marlon de Toit, wildlife photographer and pro safari guide. Through my safari company, Thunder Africa, I get to introduce people to incredible places all around the world. My passion is for nature and the animals, and I love sharing my adventures and knowledge with you. Enjoy this episode.
The first one is, let's just get it out of the way, because I know that's what everyone is talking about on this camera, or so much of it is 120 frames per second. Okay, epic feature. How do you use it? How does it work effectively on this camera right here? Head over into your menu, select drive mode, and onto continuous shoot speed best settings. Here you can select 120 frames per second. It's important to understand you don't get a burst of 10 seconds at 120 frames per second. That'll be one memory card done and dusted, and you'd be in a lot of trouble. It's just too much, okay? It's a lot, 120 frames per second. Now, where you can use it very effectively is in short bursts. Now, by short, I mean, Sony say up to 1.6 second long bursts, but even if it's a 1 second burst, that is 120 frames in 1 second. It's a lot of action right there. It buffers pretty quickly, but you can keep taking short bursts thereafter. I wouldn't recommend shooting at 120 frames per second all the time. It's not sustainable and your camera won't be able to burst for that long. The C5 button is your best friend, and Sony have put it there and automatically assigned to it this burst function, 120 frames per second on C5, okay? So you'll find it at the front of your camera. Now there's two ways to action this. Head into your operations customized menu, scroll down to the fourth icon, and here you'll see the C5 button. You can choose whether to hold the button down or to toggle it on and off. Remember to choose a frame rate of 120 frames or photos per second. Once you go into the menu and you set it up in there, once you long press it and hold it in, it will burst. As long as you're holding it in, when you press the shutter, it will then fire at that frame rate. And yes, it'll buffer in between, but as long as you're holding it, it will shoot. But if you set it up as toggle in your menu system, you can push it, then shoot, and push it again to deactivate. So it's a push, it's active, a push again, and it's deactivated. When toggle is selected for C5, I only have to press the C5 button, it'll switch on, and press it again to switch it off. So that's how that works. So easy to set up in your menu system. How I do it is I prefer holding it, because when I need it, I can see the action coming. I can just give it a squeeze, fire, let go, and I'm back at 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, whichever speed you choose. You can quick fire those fast moments, shoot them, and then return back to 60 frames per second, which is still very, very fast and a ton of photographs to work through afterwards. Use it, it will change the game for you. Pre-capture, it doesn't come activated on your camera. You actually have to go into the menu and switch it on. I don't know why Sony did that, because this is something we've been waiting for a very long time. So stoked that it's finally on my Sony camera. Go into the menu, switch it on. Head on over to your menu, select drive mode, pre-capture settings, and switch it on. Now you can choose the pre-capture recording time period. Make sure to understand how many photos will be taken. And also here, you can choose how to action this trigger. It's very effective. It's continuously buffering and creating frames beforehand before you press the shutter. So imagine a bird on a stick, you missed the first moment of flight, or something jumping, you missed the first bit. So when you're a little bit too late and you're just not fast enough for that bit of action you were hoping to photograph, this camera has you covered. And you can set for how long before or how short a duration it should be doing this pre-capture for.
Now when I play back, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the pre-capture icon. As I run through the images that I've just taken, I'll be able to see once that icon disappears, like that there, that these are no longer shot on pre-capture. I can see here that 18 images were taken using pre-capture and photo 19 down to me and my skills. Remember to fine-tune this in the menu, test it with different frame rates, and see how many photos you get using pre-capture.
Go ahead with this feature. Just be careful of how many files you write. If you have this on all the time, you're going to end up with a lot of photographs and it's going to get a little bit messy. But importantly, I've also set to my function menu, there's a spot there where I can switch it on or off. I don't want this on all the time. Guys, like if you're doing a sleeping lion or bird static up in a tree and you end up with that many photos before every single time, that's hard work to finish and to process afterwards. I love the feature because it's going to be a game changer. You're with an animal on the move or on the hunt, jaguar stalking through the river. Absolutely, this is where it's going to help you get that initial jump. Make sure to switch it on. Have the shortcut in your function menu. It's going to make life a whole lot easier for you. This is what this video is about. Make life easier. Playback. You're going to end up with a lot of photographs. How do you watch 100 photos at every time? My suggestion would be to categorize or select your playback viewing photos as a group. So go into your menu, change it to group mode, and then all the bursts that you've done, whether it's 3 or 100, will be grouped as a burst. You can click on that and then you can view them easily in there. And that for me has been the most effective way to view the images.
When you play back images as a group, it'll display like this. Press the down key to play back the images as a type of movie. Scroll the wheel to change the speed of your playback. It can go all the way to 8 and a slower speed 1. This is a great way to review images taken as a sequence. To go through 100 or 200 photos one by one is a tedious task. But by viewing them as a group like this, you're able to go through and view your photos that you've just taken, a large sequence, as a movie. It's really great. And then as I'll soon explain, you can also find the ones you like and star rate them to review later.
I've also assigned in playback mode my C3 button as a star rating system. So if you go through those moments and there are a few that you like, you can star them. When you plug them into Lightroom, they'll pop up as starred photos and it's easy to find the ones that stood out to you while you were looking at your camera. Subject recognition is turned off. Why? I don't know, but you need to go switch that on. Head into the menu, switch it on, and that's an important part. Your subjects will be recognized and you'll see it in camera. A really cool feature from Sony is they've implemented custom focus modes. So you can adjust the size of your focal point to be long, to be short, to be small, whatever you want it to be. You can adjust that now in the custom focus modes. And it's pretty easy to set up. The camera tells you exactly what to do and you can do that.
Grab your camera and select your focus areas. I use the tracking modes right at the bottom, and when you select C, 1, 2, and 3, you're able to run through and customize them. Hit the delete key to bring up the customizing panel. Notice in the bottom left corner there are prompts telling you which buttons will affect the focusing square in which manner. This is completely customizable and down to you, and either your preference or down to the subject that you're shooting at the time. Once you exit, it will remain as set. Once set, everything outside the box will be ignored and only content within will be tracked.
I think there's very specific applications for this, whether you want your square to be the size of a race car or an athlete running around or an elephant or a bird in flight, whatever it is, you can set it up to fit the shape of that bird. It will ignore everything else around that square. and focus and track whatever is in the box. I love to use my AEL button, the one top right in your camera, as another focus mode. Go into your menu and set this up.
From the autofocus menu, select focus area. Head on to autofocus area registration and switch that on. Read the prompt that comes up telling you what you've just done. Now, head on to Operations Customize in order to set the AEL button according to the focus mode that you want. Custom key, look for your AEL button on the first page and select Registered Autofocus Area plus AF on for that AEL button. Now, in order to assign the focus mode, select the focus mode that you want to assign to the AEL button. Switch it on. Now, all you need to do is hold down the function button. It will say registered the focus area, and once you've done that, you now have that wide focus mode or any other one you selected registered to the AEL button, leaving you free to select another autofocus mode for the AF on button.
For me, I love having my autofocus button right there. I can press it and I get my square tracking modes or my custom focus mode or any one that I've assigned at that time. But I love the wide tracking mode. For me, it's really effective when I have an animal coming towards me, a solo animal, a solo bird. The camera does all the work for me. The AI in this camera is incredible. By choosing this wide method and by putting it on the AEL button, really cool feature, go and use it. I love that Sony have made the touchscreen even more functional. You don't need to go and press buttons. You can just swipe on the screen. It'll bring up your function menu and other important information to help you get the shot. Really cool feature and something I think you're gonna love. A cool trick that I do is I let a screen box light up whenever I'm taking photos. What I love about mirrorless is the fact that these cameras are so quiet. It's almost offensive when you hear grrr going off in the background, you know, like an old DSLR. Nothing against the DSLR shooters out there, especially with this camera when it's as fast as what it is. You want to be able to still know that you taking photos, are you depressing the shutter button enough? One way to do that is to have a little frame light up, and that frame will light up every time you take a photo, and then you know when you're on silent mode that you are actually taking photos.
Head up over to your setup menu and now select display option. From here, shoot timing display will bring up 4 different options for you to choose from. I choose type 1, type 2 is also quite similar. Now a frame will light up every time I take an exposure.
It's a great feature and something I urge you to go switch on. It's going to help you in the field just when you're shooting quiet, and it's a nice feature to have to remind yourself you're taking shots and that you are going in the right direction. Now, when you've taken a lot of photos, a cool quick feature is the double press delete button. So go into your menu, go switch it on. All you have to do is press delete and delete it again, and then your shot is gone. Be careful though, as you don't want to be deleting photographs that are good or keepers. So use it with caution, but I've been using this for quite a while now on my Sonys, and I'm glad it's in here as well. If you haven't used it before, go give it a go. Great way to get through those bad images nice and quickly. So instead of shooting raw uncompressed files, I shoot lossless compressed. Everything points to the fact that the quality of the images remain the same, but the cool thing is they're half the size. So even though this is only 24 million pixels in terms of the size of the images, it's still a lot of photos being taken. When you're shooting at 30 or 60 or 120 frames per second, those memory cards fill up real quick. So I shoot in lossless compressed. It gives you almost twice the amount of photographs on your camera and memory cards than shooting uncompressed files. When you're shooting as fast as this little bugger over here, it's definitely a cool feature to have, and you do not lose any quality in your photographs. Go check it out, go give it a try. Second last point, your EVF, switch it to high quality. It's great to see your images like that. You can do that. You can actually change the quality of your viewfinder, so certainly go and do that. It gives it a nice and crisp edge and just makes it look very realistic when you're in the field. Many of you know this and already do this. It's not a new feature, but it still is on this camera, and if you haven't done that, it'll be a game changer for you when you get into the field. Make sure you close your shutter. So you can drop it down when you switch your camera off. You got to go activate it in the menu.
Now, from the setup menu, head up to setup option and then select anti-dust function. Curtain when power off should be turned to on. Read the notification and there, you are set to go.
When you're in the field and you want to change lenses, switch your camera off. Here's the important part. You got to wait a bit. As you can see, it takes a little bit of time for that shutter, for the curtain to drop down. So when you want to change the lenses, switch it off, then wait a few seconds. Just give it a little bit of time before you take that lens off. And then when you hear that click in the camera, you can take it off and then change your lenses without the stress of having dust on your sensor. And that's it. I think it's going to change the game for you. This camera right here is a remarkable camera. I'm going to do a video soon of how exactly I set the menu up. I wanted to share these features with you because I think they'll help you to either buy the A9 III if you haven't yet, or if you have already bought it, maybe make the setup and life a little bit easier for you. Hope you enjoyed that, and leave a comment if this video was useful to you. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you again soon. Bye.